Every single release.
Yeah, except Thugs of Hindustan.
And that's because.
Kiran asked me 2 weeks before the release of Thugs. She said, "You're sleeping very calmly this time. What happened?" I don't think it's going to do well. So I'm clear it's not going to do well.
Really?
Yeah. A lot of times when I see my earlier work, I get very unhappy. So Bhuvan, na, one of the ways to project strength is when you stand, if I stand with my weight on one leg, na, I'm not projecting strength. I have always been a huge fan of money. Almost worked together in Lajo. But that didn't work out for when you told me tell a story.
Right.
So I'm telling a story.
Wow.
But I have a story to tell, which I am dying to tell. That has a different communication quality.
Right. Hello, Aamir Khan. All the best for Sitaare Zameen par.
Thank you, Bharat.
You know, one thing, showbiz hardens a lot of people. It makes them very cynical. But almost every time I've met you, and I met you a few days ago, you always seem so spirited, full of stories to share, full of joy for the medium. Like at the last minute, you want to keep doing things. Is this a default state of wiring, this love for cinema, or do you have to keep working at it to kind of?
No, this is how I am.
This is your default.
This is how I am. This is how I've always been.
Yeah.
I'm one of the few blessed people who is doing the work that he really enjoys doing, you know. And it's like, for me, it's play, not so much work. So it's fun and I really enjoy it. So I guess, yeah. But before the release, I get very stressed and nervous. So like, I haven't slept last night.
Right.
You know, my mind goes into overdrive. And starts going very fast and I am not able to sleep. But this has happened to me for the last 35 years.
Every single release.
Yeah, except Thugs of Hindustan.
And that's because.
Kiran asked me 2 weeks before the release of Thugs. She said, "You're sleeping very calmly this time. What happened?" So I said, because I'm not happy with the film and I also don't like it and I don't think it's going to do well. So I'm clear it's not going to do well. So there's no anxiety. Anxiety is when you're excited about showing what you've made and you think it's good and you are hoping people will like it, but you don't know how it'll, obviously you don't know how people are going to react. So that excitement is when you have something exciting to show.
Right.
When what you're about to show you're not happy with, then there is no excitement.
Yeah. So this insomnia is actually a good sign.
It's a good sign.
Yeah.
It's a good sign, but it's for the.
I mean, your doctor.
2 months before the release, I get completely sleep deprived.
Right. So your doctor may not agree, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing. You know, Sitaare Zameen par, the 2 songs that have come out.
Right.
The Good for Nothing song.
Yeah.
There's a play on Papa Kehte Hain.
Yeah.
And then it says, you know, Papa Kehte Hain bada, you know, like, it's the reverse of that.
The reverse
right?
of that.
Because you're saying, bada hoke mujhko badnaam
Karega. Yeah.
You know, these things, a lot of stars do this, right? They play on things that are favorite. But I've not seen too many stars use something that made them famous to poke fun at themselves or take a dig at themselves.
Yeah.
Would you say that Aamir Khan has a sense of humor, does not have a lot of ego?
Yeah. I'm very relaxed about my stardom and I often make fun of myself. And but in this case, I had nothing to do with it.
Right.
In this case.
No, but still when they presented it.
Yeah. I also had a smile on my face. Actually, I don't like these Brechtian moments. You know, Brecht was his playwright. And he would intentionally remind the audience that it's a play going on.
Like break the fourth wall.
Break the fourth wall and, he would address the audience directly. So you would so that became it got that name, Brechtian way of writing in theatre. Where you remind, whenever, like if I'm in the film and there's a reference to Papa Kehte Hain, which is from an earlier film, it kind of takes you away from the fact that I'm Gulshan in this
that
space.
Character.
So it's slightly Brechtian for me. So I normally don't like all this. But it sounded nice and Amitabh wrote it and, Prasanna really liked it. And when I heard it, even I liked it. I realized that it's unintentionally Brechtian.
That's a nice new term.
Yeah, because actually it's very applicable for the moment that we have in the film. It so happens that it connects to an earlier song of mine.
Right.
So I let it pass. I mean, I didn't object to it.
Do you get emotional when you listen to the original Papa Kehte Hain?
Not really, no. When I hear the original Papa Kehte Hain, I go into the memories of, how unhappy I was with the way I had shot the song.
Really?
Yeah. So I go into that zone. A lot of times when I see my earlier work, I get very unhappy.
Unhappy ki you
I didn't
didn't
like the way I did it.
okay.
Now I feel like I should have done it much better. You see, when I look at the work of today's actors, in their first film itself, they are so fine in their craft and they're so invested in the honesty of the moment as well. As a new actor, when I was doing my first film, I don't think I was as capable. So when I see work of mine which I find weak, then I get irritated. I don't like to see it.
What if somebody disagreed with you and say you were actually very good in QSQT?
I know a lot of people tell me that, but I don't agree.
Okay.
When I saw the film, I thought Juhi was excellent.
Yeah.
She was on point. My work was at best erratic.
Okay.
There were some scenes I had done really well, and then in some scenes, I was not at my best. I guess I was raw and new, so I was little.
So when somebody tells you, recently we had a re-release of Andaz Apna Apna.
Yeah.
And that's considered a classic. And
Yeah.
for some other people, Lagan may be a classic. For some other people, something. So when they bring back these older things, you only remember the mistakes. So are there genuinely some films where you say, "Acha, is film mein
I have very lovely memories also, and but usually when I look at my earlier work, I start spotting the problems in it. But of course, I also like Andaz Apna Apna, I've got many fond memories, and the film is I believed in the film always, but it didn't work the first time it released. So no, to be honest, when I speak about my work in the past, or I'm discussing with you or others, we discuss many aspects of the work. Sometimes good, sometimes, but I'm fairly critical of my earlier work.
When is the time you started feeling that, okay, I'm doing consistently decent work? What was that point?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, all right.
I have no idea when I felt that, or I'm even wondering whether I still feel that.
Right.
Because each film is a challenge and each film requires you to do what is best for that film. So when I'm in the process of a film, I don't assume that, I'm good, so everything will be fine.
Right.
I'm struggling to get it right.
Right.
Always. I'm always struggling to get it right.
Right. I'm going to ask you this question, which actually is for the second part, but I'll ask you the first part first. You and Mani Ratnam were supposed to work together on this film called Lajo.
Lajo, yeah.
Lajo?
Lajo,
okay. Yeah. And it was based on an Ismet Chugtai
short
story?
Yes.
So that didn't happen.
It didn't happen.
Yeah.
It didn't happen.
Do you care to go back to that
Well,
time?
I have always been a huge fan of Mani, and I've always wanted to work with him for the longest time.
Right.
And I've met him also many times. I've been to his house. We've both had wonderful conversations. And I think both of us have, wanted to work with each other. Then we did almost work together in Lajo. But that didn't work out for third reasons. Nothing to do with Mani and me. So I'm a very big admirer of his work. And I still hope that one day he and I will work together.
Right.
Yeah.
So the reason I ask this question is because so many of your successes or the films that we consider legendary are with non-big filmmakers. For example, when I think of a Dangal, it's not that Nitish Tiwari is not talented, but at that point, he'd made Chiller Party and he'd made Bhootnath Returns. And neither of those films were either big blockbusters or neither were they hugely critically acclaimed or something. Yet something made you say, you are the right person to make
this
Dangal.
film, yeah.
And if you look back at your filmography, it's fairly constant. Farhan Akhtar is a first, Ashutosh with Lagan. There's so many, there are so many.
Mera with Rang De Basant.
Right, and the natural tendency of a star when they get to a certain stardom level
is to work with successful people.
Safe people who will be able to deliver the safe, and you see this all over India. So what makes Aamir Khan say this director, even though they may not have a huge body of work or they may not have handled a big star or something, this is the right person for the story?
This is a very interesting question, and this has come to me many times over the years in different forms. At one time, a lot of people used to assume that I'm ghost directing.
Yeah, and I've heard that a lot.
So they would assume that because a lot of these directors, when they didn't work with me, either had a film that was not successful before or after.
Right.
And it happened so many times that it became it's it can't be a coincidence so many times. And it was rather infuriating for me to try and explain to people that I'm not directing these films. These directors are the ones directing.
Yeah.
And so this question used to come to me a lot, you know. And then I realized actually, and even I used to wonder that what is it that when I have the option of working with people who are successful, why am I still getting, pulled
Right.
towards these people and these films that they want to make? I'm pulled towards Ashu's Lagan. I was pulled towards Dangal, or Dil Chahta Hai. And then I thought about it and I was wondering why, what is it that makes me do that? And then I think I realized what it was, and I'll share it with you. You see, one of the qualities I'm looking for in a director, other than the fact that I feel a director should have the basic capability of making a film. So that assuming is in place. And that the director and I have a similar sensibility and a rapport, trust and faith. But there is one more thing that I'm looking for, which earlier I didn't know I was actually looking for it. Because I sat and thought about it, I realized what it was. It's an intangible thing. What I'm looking for is, do you have a story to tell?
Okay.
I'll explain what I mean by that. Is there a story inside your stomach which is bubbling to come out?
Okay.
Do you have a story to tell which you need to tell? So I'll give you an example. Imagine there's a party going on in your house, and there are some guests and 15, 20 people are there. There's music playing, food and drinks. And you tell me that, Aamir, I'm in your house as a guest. You say, why don't you tell us some of your interesting incidents of your life? So I'll be like, oh, okay, yeah. What would you like to hear about? Which film? And I'll remember something and I will tell you that incident. There'll be 4, 5 people listening to it. Now, imagine the same party going on, a slightly different scenario. I'm not at the party. The doorbell rings and you open the door and I arrive. And as I arrive, I'll say, Bharat, you won't believe what just happened to me. And I'll walk into the house and I'll say, listen guys, listen to me, put the music off. I have a story to tell, Bharat. So because I have a story to tell, the intensity with which I will tell it, the energy with which I will tell it will be very different.
Right.
As opposed to when you told me, tell a story.
Right.
So I'm telling a story.
Wow.
But I have a story to tell, which I am dying to tell. That has a different communication quality.
Right.
So I realized in retrospect, when people used to ask me, why did you do Lagan? Ashutosh had given 2 films which had not worked. I was like, yeah, I love the script. Yes, but still why? Because I knew he had a story to tell. It was something intangible. I could sense that Ashutosh had a story to tell. I could sense that John had a story to tell. I could sense that Farhan had a story to tell. Mehra had a story to tell. Nitish had a story to tell. These are all very, very talented people. And all of us can go wrong once in a while in filmmaking. It's a difficult art form. But when you have a story to tell, then you make sure that it gets communicated.
Yeah.
Because that intensity is there in you.
Like a hunger.
So, like a hunger. So what I realized is I'm also putting my finger on directors and creative people who are hungry at that point of time. For whatever reason. At that point of time, there's an invisible energy that I'm reacting to.
Right.
Which is also giving me the desire to, work with this person.
So when you meet R.S. Prasanna, who's the director of Sitaare Zameen, do you sense this energy the first time you meet, or is it over a period of time?
The first thing I was impressed by with Prasanna was that he had done such little work. He had made a film called Shubh Mangal Savdhan, but the Tamil version of it, that was his first film.
Yeah.
I don't remember the title.
Kalyana Samayal Sadam. Yeah.
Then he made the Hindi version of it. So in essence, he had made one film.
Right.
So I said, how many films have you done after that? He said, I've done no other film. I've just done this film. So in an industry or in a society where for everyone, the success, the moment you get success, you want to quickly, cash in on it and do work. And, in this kind of a environment, very few people are the people who stop and say, no, I'm going to do something which excites me. I'm going to wait. Yes, I'm successful right now. I've got 10 offers. I can do any of these, but no, I'm not ready yet. So that really impressed me about Prasanna, the fact that he had the strength and the maturity to wait to decide what he wants to make next. That requires strength, you know.
But Aamir, that is a
That's just one of the
personal
things.
quality.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you know that will translate to a filmmaking quality?
It's one of the things that tells me that he's someone who's not the average Joe.
Oh, right, right.
You know?
Right.
Speaking with him, going through the narration, understanding his perspective of how he's seeing the film. So it's all of this put together. It's all of this put together that made me, you know, excited to want to work with him.
Right, right. In a recent talk, you said that you said something very beautiful about how you enter a character. You said that first I need to enter the head of the character,
Yeah.
and that is how I find the physicality of the character.
Everything
pehle
comes from there, yeah.
Come from the entering the psychology of the character, and for that I have to write my lines again and again and again till I internalize those lines, and then that comes out, right? I understand this as theory. Can you take maybe Rang De Basanti or any movie that you have a film and kind of make this a little like in the practicals class and like briefly tell me how you did it? I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, you know, it's
And also you said, sorry to interrupt, but you also said you like to do the toughest scene first.
yeah. So, no, you know, these are two aspects. I'm going to separate the two.
Right.
One of them is learning the lines, memorizing them, and owning them, making them your own. So that is a separate exercise. That's got nothing to do with getting into the head of the character. That I do because my memory is weak.
Okay.
It's very simple. I don't have a very good memory. Like there are people like Paresh, Sanjay Dutt. I believe you give them a 3-page scene and they read it once and they know the lines. I'm not like that. I can't remember so easily. So I have to do it again and again. I have to memorize, you know, to repeat. Repetition is what helps me memorize. And then, as you pointed out, I like to start with the toughest scene first so that in my prep, 3 to 4 months of prep, that first scene I start on the first day gets done so many times because I do it every day. That's one part of the prep, but that's not the part of where I'm trying to get into the mind of the character. That is something that happens the moment I hear the script or read the script. From that moment onwards, I'm trying to understand the mind of the person. So a lot of it comes from the script itself. If it's a well-written script, you understand the personality quite easily and quite smoothly. But then sometimes there are questions, you can go into layers, you know, where so that's the time when you need to talk to the writer and to the director, mainly to the director, about, you know, how is the director seeing it, what is this. So that's a process where which begins from reading the script, and that process goes on till, I don't know, sometimes it takes months to click into place. Now I've got it. So for example, I did a film called Hame Rahi Pyar Ke, long back with Bhatt Saab and Juhi was there. Juhi and I were in the film. Ghungat Ki Aad Se, very popular song. That film, Bharat, we finished the shooting of the film and I was still grappling with the character.
Oh.
Yeah. I was still trying to figure out what is this character, मेरे को समझ में नहीं आ रहा है. And I kept telling Bhatt Saab, I feel I haven't got the character. And by the end of the film, he was like, I'm so glad you haven't got the character because that's what this character is. He's a little, you know, out of his depths.
Like a little clueless or something.
He's clueless because actually he's got these 3 kids he has to look after, who are his sister's children. He's not a parent. He's never been a parent.
Right.
And he doesn't know how to deal with them, you know. And he's out of his depths. Then he has to look after this business that they left behind, which is called a bunch of 40 women tailoring. And he doesn't know how to deal with them. So he's out of his depths all the time.
Right.
Then he's in a relationship with this girl who's a Tamilian who breaks into Tamil every time she gets upset. So, you know, he's out of his depths in general.
Wow.
So it actually worked
in favor.
In favor because I was quite confused till the end and it was fine.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is that sometimes you get it immediately. Like in Lagan, I got it almost immediately.
Okay.
Because the writing is so clear that you understand Bhuvan straight away. You can feel Bhuvan, you know. And I also feel, you know, that each of us has a different energy.
Right.
Each human being, each person has a different energy. So one of the things I'm trying to zero in on is the energy of the person. So like in 3 Idiots, the energy of the person of Rancho is very alive, you know. His brain is constantly whirring away, you know. So even when he's looking at you, you should feel that उसका वो पूरा brain में सब पहिए वहिए सब बहुत fast चल रहे हैं. You know what I'm trying to say? So the energy of the person is also something that I'm wanting to identify. You know, I'm not a trained actor here. So I've found my own way of doing these things, and often I'm not able to explain it.
Right.
I don't know if it's making sense to you what I'm saying.
It is. It is.
So it's the energy of the character, it's, you know, understanding the head of the character, because then everything else flows from it.
Right.
So for example, in Lagan, what is Bhuvan's most remarkable quality? The script tells you that his most remarkable quality is his inner strength. And his inner strength is so strong, he's like a mountain, doesn't shift, you know. So how do you, so that's I feel his, you know, one of his most remarkable qualities. His integrity, his inner strength. The challenge may be insurmountable, but he still goes for it.
Right.
So he also has innocence. Otherwise, he would never take on a bet which is so absurd. Beating the British at a game which he has never played in his life.
Right.
When he says Sart Manjoor hai, he's saying yes to a bet. There is no way that he could have won. Absolutely no way he could have won that bet. And still he says yes, he takes it on. So he's also slightly innocent, little foolish.
Yeah.
If he was sharp, he would have said, no, this is a wrong bet I'm getting into.
Yeah.
But he believes.
Yeah.
There is some innocence in it. No, we can do it. So you have a lot of inner strength in this personality, and you also have innocence. Now the two of them are contrary to each other. When I show you innocence, my inner strength goes down. I'm innocent. I won't appear strong. And if I show you strength, then it takes away from innocence. So I was in this dilemma as to how to project both at the same time. So one of the things that I did I'll have to stand up and show you. So Bhuvan, one of the ways to project strength is when you stand, if I stand with my weight on one leg, I'm not projecting strength. You know, my strength is projected when my center of gravity is in the center, my weight is equally divided between both the legs. This is Bhuvan.
Right.
Straight away you feel this guy has got a lot of inner strength. This ramrod, you know, his back is straight and his gaze is very steady. So that's inner strength. I'm projecting it without performing.
Right.
Without doing anything. It's just in my body language that I'm making you feel inner strength. How do I bring in innocence? So I was grappling with that. Isko innocence लाएंगे तो गड़बड़ हो जाएगा. So you know how I got the solution? Mickey Contractor, he's a makeup artist. So I was doing some work with him before Lagan. And actually he's not done Lagan also. But I was just, you know, chatting with him and saying, I'm finding it, how do I get innocence without performing it? I can't perform it. It has to come, can it come in the form of makeup? So he said, yeah, that's easy. I said, what? He said, just curl your eyelashes. Oh. So what happens is your eyelashes, like my eyelashes are drooping down and they're quite long, but they're straight. So when you curl them, your eye looks slightly bigger, 1 millimeter bigger, without you opening it any bigger. You're not opening your eyes. But visually your eye looks slightly bigger because the eyelashes are curled up.
Right.
So a lot of actresses curl their eyelashes up, you know, as part of their makeup to look beautiful.
Yeah.
So he said, let me do it and show you. So he did it and I was like, yeah, you're right. So throughout Lagan, my makeup artist was using a curler. Before each scene, I used to curl my eyelashes. Now these are all very fine, minor things, you know. So I actually don't have any, because I'm not a trained actor, I've not been to film school.
But these are fascinating.
So I use my common sense. Let me put it this way. I use my common sense to try and achieve the character that I have to.
Just speaking of Lagan, one small thing, because, you know, I was into the movie right from the get-go, right? But there's one scene that when you start practicing cricket and you hit the ball and it goes and hits the bell on the temple. Temple bell.
Yeah.
And that's become a shagun kind of thing.
Yeah.
I was like,
it's a moment.
Fuck, this movie is really going to work. I was like, because that sur is
Yeah.
isn't that
It gets you.
Gets you. It's like, wow, this is such a fantastic old school India, and it's getting, because
Style
a
of
lot of
narration,
people want to do old school,
but they don't know how to
they
do it
don't
well.
know how to do. And this was, I was like, wow, that
Yeah,
moment just completely
Nails it.
Nails it.
Yeah.
Like, so when Sitaare Zameen Par, when you're reading like the script,
Hmm.
is there a moment, or any script, is there a moment where you're feeling it, but then that one scene happens that you feel, chal, this is something that I'm really going to do?
You know, that usually happens in the first time that I'm hearing the narration. So a lot of people like to read scripts. I like to hear scripts. I like to hear the narration. That's my first choice. And I like to hear it from the director,
Right.
not from the writer. Because when I hear it from the director, then it helps me understand the vision of the director.
Right.
How he or she is seeing the film, how he or she is seeing the character. So that becomes a little more clear to me. So I like to go that process. When I'm hearing a script, I'm like an audience watching a film. When you're watching a film for the first time, like let's say Lagan, people watched for the first time, the feeling that they got is the feeling that I got when I heard the script for the first time, if you know what I mean. So I heard the script and I was like, wow. So I actually go with my instinct as an audience.
Right.
As an audience, if I love something, then I get attracted towards it.
Right. Right.
So it's not any one thing. There are the script of screenplay of Lagan is a very beautifully written screenplay. Ticks all the boxes in that sense of what is good mainstream writing. And so I just gravitated towards that, or any of these scripts that I've done finally. It's as a result of my instinct as an audience.
So the strongest thing for an actor is the instinct.
You see, we're calling it instinct, but what is instinct?
Guesswork.
Instinct, no. Instinct is, according to me, instinct is your experiences and what you've learned over the years till today. Which, when you're confronted with a question or something that you have to decide on, that quick calculation that your brain does, and inside you get a feeling that मेरे को ये करना है.
Yeah.
We feel it's instinct because it's happening in a flash of a second.
Right.
But actually, in a flash of a second, the brain is computing and analyzing all the past experiences, which leads the brain to come to this decision कि हाँ मुझे ये करना है. So we call it instinct, but actually it's an accumulation of experiences which our brain is very quickly going through.
Right.
Now, I must tell you that I've had this advantage which I didn't know at that time. So when I was a kid, I used to love to listen to stories. And I used to listen to Hawa Mahal on radio, and our cook in the house, when she finished making dinner, we used to go and sit in the kitchen and, insist to her to tell us stories of Sheikh Chilli and, any story. And at that time also, because my father was a producer, a lot of writers and directors came home to pitch stories to my dad. Sometimes just concepts which took 5, 10, 15 minutes. Sometimes full narrations which took 3 hours with dialogues, fully developed script. So I've heard all kinds of stories from the age of 5 or 6 till the age of 16, 17. 17, yeah. Everything my father heard, I heard.
Right.
The reason I was listening to the stories is because there's someone telling a story in the house. I'm going to hear it. I love stories.
Right.
But what I didn't realize was that is actually my Gurukul style of training happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I also didn't know because I had no idea I'm going to come into the films.
Yeah.
So the stories being analyzed, discussed, the writers, directors, that whole process of growing up in a filmmaking household, watching films being made was actually, I was soaking it all like a sponge.
Yeah.
So today when I hear a script and I say, I love this, there are so many things that are happening instinctively, which I'm calling instinct is actually is a collection of, experiences which are making me quickly arrive at that decision, which we give a name instinct.
Yeah. Yeah.
But actually instinct is your mind deciding for you.
Right. Right.
Is what I feel.
Many creators have what I like to think is a 1.0 phase and a 2.0 phase. The 1.0 phase is when they're trying to establish themselves in the industry, though they take pretty much any role that comes their way. Let's talk about actors because of you. So they take all the roles.
Whatever is offered to them.
Whatever is offered to them.
Beggars can't be choosers.
And the big banners, this thing, that thing. Then there comes a space where suddenly, maybe it's age, maybe it's wisdom, maybe it's whatever it is, they just settle down and say, listen, I've done all this. Now I'm a star. I've established myself. Now this is how I want my 2.0 phase to pan out. Maybe I'm not saying
Sure.
they do deliberate, but that's the logic, right? Would I be right in saying that Aamir Khan's 2.0 phase began around the time of Lagan and Dil Chahta Hai? Where you said, it's not enough if I just act in a film, I need to curate the films that I'm doing.
Actually, in a sense, yes. So the manner in which I worked didn't change from my first film till now.
Right.
So that has been consistent. But what happened with Lagan is because I had turned producer, suddenly things were in my control.
Right.
And things that I had been wanting to do for many years, now I could do.
Right.
So for many years, I'd been telling my directors and producers that let's shoot the film in one go. I don't want this film to take 1 year to make, where we are shooting in different schedules and there are gaps in the middle.
Right.
It's not nice to work this way.
Right.
Creatively, you should all get into it, complete the whole film and then come out of it.
Yeah,
So can we do it in one go? There was a constant resistance towards that. Then I wanted to do sync sound. And there was a constant resistance for sync sound as well. Nahi, silent nahi hote. India is a noisy country. How will you keep it silent? And you'll end up doing sync sound, which is expensive, and then you'll also do dubbing, and
Right.
waste time also. There were a lot of things that I felt need to be done in a particular way. So when I turned producer, I realized that now I can do them.
Right.
I can do one film at a time. I can do sync sound. I brought in the first AD system, which existed outside of India.
Right.
That's why I was able to do all these things, because I had turned producer. So maybe that's why it can be identified as, phase 2, where suddenly I could, well, let me put it this way, suddenly now I was actually taking the decisions.
Right.
And I didn't have to ask anyone.
And therefore the nature of the films changed.
Yeah, I don't want to sound,
I mean, I'm not dismissing your earlier films.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
just
I don't
saying,
want to sound like. I feel that I'm a good producer,
Right.
and I bring in a certain strength as a
right,
producer.
right, but because even if it's a Jaane Tu ya Jaane Na, whatever
Yeah,
it is,
yeah.
there's a flavor, a certain commitment that you find in the
Yeah,
film, and not necessarily from like you feel that
Whole team.
wholeness, and not that. Like sometimes when you look at the older films, there's bits that work, bits that don't work. Some pieces look like they belong, some pieces look that they don't belong. That you don't find in your films. Like the film may work, not all that is different, but that there's an organicness to the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
It's like
That's how I work. Yeah.
okay. All right.
I feel that a good film cannot be stopped. And a film that doesn't connect, you can do what you want in the marketing, is not going to work. One of the reasons that we did not succeed was that we went wrong was my performance. I think my performance as Lal, once COVID opened up a little and I said, Prasanna, I've decided not to act anymore. So he was like, what? I said, yeah, I'm quitting films. So he's like, whoa. When Gajni came, my film is action, but action is not working anymore. Nobody wants to see action.
Yeah.
So my films release at a time when it is completely ill-timed. When my action film comes, action films are not working. When my comedy film comes, that time action films are working. So I'm constantly stressed. I don't know, right now everyone wants to see action. The last, 12 films have been action blockbusters.